Now we're going to go to one last This is going to be a fireside conversation, actually. We're going to be rejoined by Kaylee Barker, who, for those of you who were here at the top of the day, got things rolling. Now we're going to go full circle. We're going to have Colin McClelland, the editor-in-chief of the Northern Miner, sit down with Kaylee to discuss Japan Gold. Do we have Kaylee ready to go? Right here. Fantastic. Thanks, Kaylee. And there's Colin. Please join me on stage, gentlemen. You both have microphones. Thank you. There you go. Colin, your microphone's on your seat. Thanks. Thank you.
Cheers. Check 1, 2, check. Check 1, 2. Hey, Kaylee, how are you doing?
Well, how are you?
Yeah, good to see you.
Thank you.
Afternoon, everybody. Kaylee Barker, as a geologist turned investor with 30 plus years in mining and finance, right? You're now managing director of Excelsior Capital. It's a critical metals finance firm, an advisor to Japan Gold. And I guess that's why we're here, to talk about Japan Gold. The first foreign explorer in that country, right? Where the company is focused on high-grade epithermal gold in historically mined districts. Now, you've got a land package going across several islands. Can you tell us a bit about that and what's behind some of the historically mined activity there?
Yeah, thanks very much, Colin. I mean, it's an amazing story. I mean, Japan had a 500-year-long mining history that closed down up after the war. There were 76 producing gold mines in the country. 76. They're all closed. So it's an amazing opportunity. There was a moratorium that was across the country up until 1980 when the Hishikari gold mine was found. And that's the only producing mine in the whole country. It's the highest grade gold mine in the world, pretty much, at about 20, 30 grams a ton, produces 200,000 ounces a year. It's got no processing plant because they use the ore, they direct ship it to the copper smelters for silica flux. And that's the model that we're kind of looking for at Japan Gold. Is, what that translates to is basically, low capex, very low opex. Sumitomo Metal Mining owns that mine. We think it produces at around $500 an ounce all-in sustaining cost. Incredibly cheap. And we've picked up all the ground around that mine. There's a whole district. We've got another district this is in Kyushu in the southern island. We've got another district in Kyushu. And we've also got a district up in the north in Hokkaido. It's 3,000 square kilometers, so a huge amount of ground. Japan Gold were very good. We came in when the moratorium finished in 2012 and picked up all that licenses.
You got first crack.
First crack. I mean, it's first mover in a new frontier. I mean, it's horrible to say about a first world country like Japan, but it's true. It's true.
So how would you compare that, the stability there in Japan, with this kind of promise of riches that haven't been mined for decades?
Yeah, it's a sort of nascent mining industry. They're very keen to develop that mining industry. It's obviously the country's been well known for processing downstream technology and so forth. It doesn't have that upstream. They've got plenty of quarries and aggregates.
And then putting it in kind of a global context, most places that haven't been explored a lot are maybe a bit more risky. How would you, assess the permitting and that kind of situation in Japan?
Yeah, it's further behind, obviously, and we've had to go in and help them improve the permitting process. On the exploration side, it's more time-consuming and it's more prescriptive. It's a bit like what you have to do in Turkey. So every drill location has to be permitted. Every drill hole has to be permitted. You can't just walk up with a truck and start poking holes in the ground. So it's a bit more prescriptive in that regards. But so exploration-wise, it's a little bit tougher. You have to be organised. We've got our own permitting team. We've got our own drill rigs we've had to bring into the country because there wasn't any drilling expertise.
What about this? Is there a skills gap there, or how is that looking?
Yeah, there's definitely a skills gap. I mean, there's plenty of exploration geologists. One of the guys on our board, Takayama Kuriyama-san, was ex-Sumitomo, VP Exploration. He was the mine manager at Hishikari. He's on our board. So the country's been picked over geologically for these historic workings. What they haven't done is applied a lot of the modern exploration techniques. And just to round off your question about permitting, once you get through the exploration phase, you're moving to mining. They call it a digging permit, not even a mining permit, a digging permit, because it's based on the aggregates industry. So no First Nations, very low environmental legislation, much, much easier to permit a mine.
And what kind of a horizon are you looking for your next milestones there?
Yeah, we're still very much in the early stages of exploration, I guess. I guess we're post-discovery. We know we've hit gold around Hishikari. We know it's there. What we really want to do is we're looking at two different search spaces. All the historic mines, gold mines, that were pre-war were in this very shallow, like, first 100 meters. Hishikari is actually a bit lower. It's 200 or 300 meters depth, which is still, like, incredibly shallow. You know, I've been down the South African mines, 3,000
Right.
kilometers, where you're nudging on the core of the earth down there.
Pretty hot down there.
Pretty hot. So it's shallow. I mean, I've been down Hishikari. It's a beautiful mine. That's what we're looking for in this sort of deeper search space. And if you compare that, I always think of it a bit like Western Australia. 10, 15, 20 years ago, there was no underground really mining industry in Australia, particularly in the gold. It was very much all open pits. Now it's hugely developed. And that's what I see the way Japan will be like, this sort of slightly deeper search space, underexplored by modern techniques. It's sort of like an easy win. You just got to do the drilling, be systematic, and hopefully the ounces will come.
Can you talk about specific areas and what you may have planned in so many meters coming this year?
Yeah, we have put in a few holes up in the north in Hokkaido. These are more sort of what called framework drilling, so they're just about understanding the ore body. We have found gold up there. We've had lots of sniffs. We haven't found enough to really put together an economic ore body, and that's just a function of drilling. We just didn't have enough dollars to put into the ground. In the south, around where Hishikari is, we've been drilling down there. We've put in some holes, some shallow holes. We hit 10 to 15 meters at 2 to 4 grams. So we know the gold's there. We've already hit it. What we want to do, and what we've just done, is put in a few deeper holes, so more Hishikari depth, 300 or 400 meters depth. Those results should be coming out before the year end. But at the moment, we're sort of a little bit in a pause. We had an alliance with Barrick.
Yeah, I was just going to get to that. You've had some interest from some big partners.
Yeah, we entered 5 years ago. We entered into an alliance with Barrick. They wanted to, and the reason we chose Barrick as a partner is they wanted to screen the whole country. By some weird quirk of the law in Japan, JOGMEC, who are the equivalent of the USGS, the Geological Survey, they're not allowed to do their job in Japan. So Japan Gold has kind of been doing the Geological Survey job.
You're becoming a new government agency there. You're fitting right in.
Absolutely, and that's what Barrick wanted to do too. So they were the perfect partner to screen the whole country, do a geological survey exercise. They've done that. They spent 5 years doing that. They spent $18 million, put in 18,000 meters of drilling. We kind of understand the systems now. What we want to do is get in there and drill. Barrick didn't really want to commit to that next round of financing, so we finished the alliance, and now we're looking for a new strategic partner to come in and be committed.
Right, and you had some help from Newmont.
Newmont are a shareholder. They own 8% of the company. They've been very supportive. That was actually a legacy holding originally from the Goldcorp days. But we have lots of interest, both within the Japanese groups and also plenty of the normal North American names that we all know and love.
Now, you have a strong interest in Japan. You've been going there for years. You have connections there. Tell me about your bonds there to the country, and maybe we can talk a bit about your investment philosophy too.
Yeah, I first went to Japan in the late 90s. I was, and I sort of still am, a bit of a martial arts nut. I've been doing martial arts for 4 decades.
Any particular one that's your favorite?
I've done all of them. Muay Thai kickboxing is probably my favourite, but I started with the traditional Japanese styles, one called Shorinji Kempo, which isn't well known here, but it's one of the big styles in Japan. I lived in Japan in the late 90s. My wife's Japanese, so it's our second home. I've been going there for 30 years. I love the place, and what's like really pleasing now is that it's become incredibly popular. Everybody talks about Japan.
Well, even I've been there a couple of times. I went skiing there in Hokkaido. It's just a lovely, lovely place.
It's incredible. I mean, it's so unique, but it's just there's so much to see and do there.
I'd like to tell this kind of a metaphor that you're able to, like, perhaps eat off the space in between the tracks in the railway stations because it's so clean.
It really is. It really is. I mean, there's so much to like there. I mean, not only is it like incredibly clean, if you lose your wallet or something, they'll phone you up and someone will find you.
Right.
You know, the wallet will find back to you. So there's lots to like about the place. I do love it.
So turning back maybe to your martial arts, aficionado-ness about that, how do you manage risk and uncertainty, maybe in a martial arts way, when you're dealing with investment?
Yeah, with a lot of discipline and very, very thick skin. I always, here's to throw an anecdote back at you. When my children were very young, I went to a pool party, and all these kids I was in the pool with them, and all these kids were smacking me around the head with these foam noodles. And as I got out the pool, one of the parents said to me, why did you let them do that? You know, you got 12 kids hitting you around the head with these foam noodles. And I said, well, compared to being punched in the face by a 20-stone monster, it's pretty easy. And that's what martial arts taught me. Like, nothing's worse than being in a cage with some monster wanting to tear your head off.
And now, how are you kind of trading off? Maybe are there some other mineral opportunities in Japan besides gold, or are you just specifically focused on gold?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually, Colin. We did have some licenses for copper, and we did a joint venture with First Quantum for a few years, but it was too much for a small company like ours to do everything. So we decided to drop that and focus on the gold. I mean, we've got 3 districts and 6 projects in the country. Right. It's just too much. There are some other minerals opportunities in Japan, but most of it is gold focused. I was at the ministry over the summer. They're very keen on critical metals there, and then putting on my Excelsior hat, which is my day job. You know, all those sort of small commodities like antimony, tungsten. They're quite keen. We've got a bit of antimony on one of our licenses. It's very early, but there was some old historic mines that we could look at again. And
how is your work kind of doing their geological survey? Are you covering more critical minerals?
Yeah. I mean, with what's going on now, I don't think you can ignore it. It's hard not to fall into the mining market situation where you're like, well, everyone's suddenly got antimony, and we've seen that storybook before with uranium and lithium. But we know it's there. If the government, or other parties want to help us fund it, and we'll look more, we'll do more work in it. You know, again, with my Excelsior hat on, that's much more immediate. You know, the traders, I work with Wogan Resources, which are specialty metals traders. They want the metals sort of now or within months. You know, and exploration is far more long dated.
Right, and maybe it's a bit early for some of your gold projects, but how would you kind of picture, with your background in finance, what would you kind of see financing a project there? A bit of streaming, debt, equity, how would you structure a project in the future there?
Yeah, I mean, at Excelsior, we mostly do credit, simply because those smaller minor metals, you need a sort of self-liquidating type financing structure. It's hard, with equity, if you're investing into small companies, in size, you come up against a liquidity trap. I had that at BlackRock when I was managing the funds there. It's very, very easy to get trapped into a company that you can't trade in and out of. So with Excelsior, we tend to do those, just as you said, with either seen as secured credit or prepayments. Sometimes we look at royalties too, but it's with a view to always getting product. So we don't go too early, usually within a few years of product.
And how's the ESG situation there? Is it well developed in the regulations there? How are you encountering meeting requirements?
In Japan?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's definitely not as onerous as the likes of Canada and Australia. We don't, as I said, we don't have any indigenous groups, so that makes that part. There's some up in the north actually called the Ainu, but generally speaking, it's a lot easier. They are conscious about environmentally, like everywhere else in the world. There are forestry, but we work with them. Some of our licenses are in forestry commissioned areas, and they're fine to work with. They're very keen. They're very economically astute. It's a very, very developed country. There's cities everywhere, so they want economy.
And what's the attitude towards mining there? Is it an accepted fact of modern life that it's necessary to make all the products that Japan is famous for, or do you find that it has a negative perception?
Yeah, I would say with industry, if I exclude mining, but industry, it's part and parcel of their business. If you walk through a city, I mean, you'd have done it. You walk through Tokyo, you're suddenly walking. One minute you're walking past a glass tower, the next minute you're walking past a factory, or a farm, and then a mountain. It's all packed into a tight cube.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's part and parcel of it. Mining they're less familiar with. But the government is very keen to develop, reignite their industry. We've seen with Takaichi-san, the new prime minister, she's
Just going to ask you, what kind of feeling does she bring?
Well, people were a little bit sceptical at first, not because she's the first female prime minister in what's been a very male-dominant society traditionally, but actually, mainly because she was coming from a different background to some degree. But actually, people have warmed to her immensely. We've already seen her appoint a great cabinet. She's very, very, very pro-Japan. She's coming across reasonably, with the exception of China, she's coming across pretty well in the global spectrum. But most importantly, the best touch point is the fact that she's firing up the nuclear industry again, and that's
Right.
necessary for them to meet their energy plan.
Sure enough. And then what about the mining point person in the government? Are you familiar with their record and how they performed?
Yeah, I met with the METI, which is the Ministry of Energy, Trade and Industry. I met with them over the summer, and the director there, I mean, he cannot be more supportive of what we're doing. And, I've met with him both with my Japan Gold hat and my Excelsior Capital hat, and they just want their industry to do better and do more. So, any ideas that they have, anything that we bring to help them, aid them in that, they want to be part of the sort of, not resource nationalisation, but the securitization of their natural resources, I suppose.
Now, Japan updated its mining code in 2012, and now it's 14 years later almost. What needs to be done, or what are they working on?
Yeah, I think the one we're helping them with most is speeding up the exploration side of the permitting process,
Right.
because it's very prescriptive. One thing we were drilling up in the north. They tend to work in series through their permitting process. So it was like, well, can't you guys all work together and do this in parallel?
Okay.
So we trimmed down the permitting process by 40%. We'd like to sort of see that continuing more, and getting the renewal process of licenses done quicker. So it's well understood. Don't get me wrong. There's no unlike a lot of places in the world, there's no fear of geopolitics and expropriation or anything like that. They're very supportive. It's just they've been quite, not bureaucratic, but I guess very, very structured in the way they make their decisions.
Okay, maybe we're going to pull back a bit and maybe sum up. What's the next year looking like for you?
Well, I hope at the top of the list will be a new strategic partner that we'll have in the country. Once we have that, it's about dollars in the door, really, at the end of the day. Once we have that, I think we'll be able to sort of define our
Can you
exploration
give any
approach.
clues there? Is it someone local or it's someone foreign?
We've got a range of parties in our data room looking at it at the moment. We don't know. The range of outcomes could be anything from what we have currently, which at the moment we did earlier this year, we did a deal with Cisco Royalties, OR Royalties, $5 million for a 1.5% royalty. You know, so we can continue doing what we're doing, keep drilling, right up until getting even maybe 2 or 3 strategic partners that can come in, fund each one of these districts, and then we can really get the exploration results flowing.
And what's your elevator pitch to them to attract them to your data room?
Well, it's simple, isn't it? Like underexplored, new
Right.
frontier, highest grade gold mines in the world, and we've collated a great discovery team with our own drill rigs ready to go.
Stable jurisdiction.
Stable jurisdiction, absolutely.
I'd like to ask if anyone has any questions for Kaylee about Japan, exciting country with nice history for...
Being attacked by foam noodles in a pool, also fine.
If not, we got a couple in the middle here.
It's in spring. There's the 2 best seasons in the world are cherry blossoms, which depends where you are in the country because they're very long and thin. Hokkaido gets to -20 in the winter, and the south is tropical. So the cherry blossom season varies where you are in the country. Now is the changing of the leaves. That's even better. Red leaves everywhere. It's just fantastic. It's beautiful. If you get a chance to go to Japan, thoroughly recommend it.
Question down front here.
What happens to the price of gold when Japan finishes America?
Yeah, there's a sort of a bit of a natural hedge there with the yen. You can see the yen's been quite weak, which is part of the reason why tourism is the strongest it's ever been in Japan as well. So there is a slight natural hedge. They don't really have a gold head on them in terms of investing, like like the Swiss do, for example. But what I think is that realization is coming more and more apparent as we go. They recently revised some of the retail investing, so now they have a JISA, like the Japanese ISA that we have in the UK. So it gives they're trying to build up their retail community to get them to understand sort of things like that. But the way I look at it is when you look at gold in yen terms, you pull that up on a chart, and that'll answer the question for you.
Who buys the gold from mines? There's some mentions here, I'm investing in Turkish gold mine, the Turkish state buys all the gold. Is it the same scenario in Japan?
Yeah, I mean they process it through their smelters, and then they'll just sell it to a refinery if they don't refine it themselves. But there's very little gold that actually goes through Japan.
We had a question.
There's a question in the middle here.
Yep.
Is there a reason Sumitomo is not stepping up and saying let's have a second operating mine in Japan?
Yeah,
Given that they are 30% owner of Hokkaido, for example.
that's right. Yeah, so this is Sumitomo Metal Mining. That's right. There's a lot of internal politics that goes on there. Historically, Sumitomo Metal Mining had done a lot of exploration in this surface level and not found very much. They haven't really looked at depth. So the sort of old guard of Sumitomo are like, well, we've kind of looked at a bit at Japan. We're not really sure. We see far better opportunity overseas, which is what they've done, like Kote, and we've heard from IM Gold. But the newer guard are more protective about their home turf and more keen on their home turf, which is where we sort of come in. They can see what we're doing, and they're like, we don't want to miss out on this. This is really interesting. So we'll see how that plays out. I think that what I've seen meeting all the trading houses is they get more and more interested in their own domestic industry.
I think we had a question at the back there. I'm not sure if you want to come forward a bit.
Success with Japanese investors. Have you had success with Japanese investors?
Yeah, it's very comparable to the UK in a lot of regards. There's not a big retail community there. It's the same as the UK. It's not a massive retail community, not like Australia and Canada where it's much more prolific, particularly in the mining. That's very much in the mining space. On the institutional space, they're used to investing in more blue chip. You know, there's no exploration companies listed on the Tokyo Stock Exchange. So they don't have a familiarity with it. So it's an education process. When I was at BlackRock, I was running these Japanese gold funds, and I used to tell them, do you know there's a gold mine in your country? And they're like, no, no idea. And you can invest in it, but it's not here. It's on the TSX. You've got to put money in Canada. And they're like, oh, really? So yeah, it's an education.
Anyone else? I think that probably wraps it up. Fantastic. Kaylee Barker from Japan Gold. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.